Well, this is a new star map that I'm making for the Frac Lorraine. It's an area of France in the east, near a small city called Beach, or well, Beach, I think. I can't really pronounce it correctly. I just run through how I'm making this. I don't know if you can see, but there's lots of little black dots here. These are the summits of small mountains. Right there, you can see one there. Here you can see the little summits. Summits are denoted on the map by a round contour. There, and here, and here, and here. And the whole map is covered in these little. Every summit gets a little bit of latex. And then when that's finished, I then spray the map with many layers of blue and black, using an air gun, an aerograph. And then, after I'm satisfied with the tonality of the black, I then stop and take off the latex, and then continue to spray until the latex area is a little bit grey, and then I just put a little white dot on it, and that's the end of it, and it becomes a constellation. And I'll try and make a few little videos of this as I progress, and show you how it's developing. I'm working in the outside part of the studio at the moment. I think I'll step back so you can see it a bit better. Working with spray paint is really a messy business, so rather than work inside the studio, I've decided to paint outside. It's nice and warm, and not raining, so it should be fine. So I've just started spraying the map. I'm just using this small air gun and a little compressor down here. You can just see. And this does the job. The reason I'm doing this map is that I was asked to make another star map for this place. I don't know if you can see it. I just realised that I was about to cover it in paint, and it's called Saint Louis les Beach, or Bitch, or Bitch, or Bitch. St. Louis, the Bitch. But I'm not really sure how that's pronounced. It doesn't sound very good in English. I took part in an exhibition organised by the Frac in this little place here. They asked me to make a star map, an edition, which basically means make a digital map, which is then printed, and these maps were then given away free at the exhibition. The problem was that, as often is the case, is the subject, the exhibition is right on the very edge of the map, which also means it's on the edge of all maps. So to make that particular map, I had to use 3 maps to construct one map. And on this occasion, the Frac have asked for a painted star map. So I'm just doing the one of the general region, and it just happens to catch where the exhibition was, just on the very edge. Basically, I just paint, continue like that, layer after layer after layer. And the first layer is black, and the second layer is blue, and black and blue and black and blue, and it just goes on like that until I'm happy with the consistency of the colour, and then I take off the little bits of latex, and I'll talk more about that later on. Well, as you can see, I've just done the first layer of black on the star map, and in fact it took quite a long time. The airbrush needs a little bit of fine tuning. Okay. So you can see things are starting to get covered up now. These are the summits, all the little summits here. They're all many summits. That's the the main attraction. And the main thing is not to put too much paint on to begin with, otherwise the map, because it's just paper, the map just starts to buckle, absorbing moisture, and just becomes a mess. So there's you've constantly got to be careful, and it's very, very easy, you know, to have little accidents such as this down here. But fortunately that was okay. Well, the map's had a few layers now of black and blue, and as you can see, it's much darker. I don't know how well we can see that. This sort of strong, bright reflection that you can see there, that's just the condition of the light when you view through the camera. Try and put it to the side a bit more. Well, anyway, it still looks quite sort of shiny. It's not, in reality, it's not really shiny like you see on the image. So slowly the map is getting darker and darker. Some areas are lighter because, in fact, those are areas with less relief. Here's an example of the colours that are getting put on there. That's the blue. Well, clearly that's the blue, and the black. And they're just continually layered up until we get a good finish. Okay. Not so sunny today, which is quite nice, really. The heat. I've never actually made a map when it's been so hot, so the heat tends to pull the paper quite a lot, and also it'll, in a sense, accelerate the glues which are holding these tapes down. So that means that it's probably going to be more difficult to get those tapes off without damaging the map, because a big part of the process is releasing the tape afterwards without releasing the tape here without actually damaging the map. Well, this is now the stage in the process where I start to take off these very small little bits of latex, and what I'm going to do now is just pull these off. It's a bit difficult holding a camera and doing this at the same time, because you've got to be fairly steady-handed. You don't want to put your hand actually on the painting. And you don't want to scratch the black. Okay, so there you can see right through to the just there you can see through to the original map surface there, and then there's another one just here, and just coax that off. Keep cleaning it. Another one here. Okay. So I'll just bring the camera back a bit so you start to get some indication of what's going on. So once I've done that for the whole map, I then respray the map with black and blue, and then these generally become grey, or a sort of a greyish black. These little stars, and and so there's a slight sort of like a halo effect, and then I put a little bit of white in the middle of it just to give a sort of make it look like a star or something like that. As you can see, it's quite difficult to get all the latex off. A lot of that's probably because of the excessive heat that we've had. Been very, 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 very hot the last week or two. Okay, so that's going to take me a little while. Well, I've taken off all the latex now, and the map is. I've tilted the map at this rather strange angle. It's because we have a lot of, as you see, we've got a lot of daylight out there, which is really shining in and reflecting off the black. So I'll bring the camera in closer, and you can see now. For example, that's quite an interesting one. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little number 4 inside, just there. This is a good example here. There's a little triangulation point, a little triangle there, and there's another one over here. So these are clearly summits. Every star is a summit, or every little white spot is a summit of some description. Now, one thing that is important with these star maps, just bring this down. This is a great little table. If you ever manage to get hold of one of these tables, there's, you know, the old-fashioned sort of architect's tables, and they're absolutely fantastic for working on. That gives you a better idea of what the map looks like now. There, you can see it better. And as you can see, there's an awful lot of stars up here. In fact, this is the German frontier. Let's see. The German frontier runs up here. So this is right in the very east of France. And this town here, which I'm always a bit embarrassed about, is it Bitch or Beach, or I'm not really sure. It's an unfortunate name for a town. It's located down here. And Saint Louis-les-Beach, or Saint Louis-les-Beach, is actually down here, right on the very edge of the map, and that's where the exhibition was. I think it's probably about here, might be here somewhere. And an important thing that for me about these summits or stars is not which is the highest or anything like that. It's that each one is significant, no matter whether it's a mountain summit or just a small rise, a small hill in a lowland area. Everything is significant. When we're children, we don't really care about what the biggest thing is. Whatever is a little rise in the garden or in the park, we go on top of it. So everything is relative. You know, if you've got a small hill in a park, you'll think of that as the mountain in the park. Everything is symbolic and metaphorical. So I don't really make any distinction between, you know, which is the highest, which is the smallest in terms of size. That's the kind of just the poetics of it. Up here, this area of land, there's not so many summits, but that doesn't mean that that's a low area of land. That actually is quite a high area of land, but it's a plateau. It's very flat. Here, we're getting a lot of summits, so this shows that the land is very irregular. It's like that. And probably the most intense area is up here, which is actually in Germany, in Allemande. And this is full of little summits. Here again it starts to flatten out, or the actual mountains become bigger or more massive, but with only one summit. And here there is a plateau up here. And the town itself, or the ville of Birch, is just here. And here, this must be quite a remarkable city, because there's quite a lot of little hills. I think here there's an old fort on a sort of miniature mountain in the centre of the city. Okay, So the next stage, I don't know if you just pull that back. The next stage is to spray the map again, and then that just puts a little bit of black and a little bit of blue into each one of these stars, which sort of reduces their brightness and in a sense creates a sort of greyness. And then I place a little bit of white paint on in the center of each one. So, and often I think maybe I should just leave the map like this, but in fact I'm just gonna keep it going. This is an interesting feature here. This suggests a kind of mountain ridge with lots of summits on it. That's almost a straight line. So, and I think that the basic principle is clearly sort of established, that now when we look at that, we're looking at what appears to be a star system, or just the sky at night. And an important aspect for me in these maps is that they suggest that we're looking at space, outer space, the stars, away from Earth, when in fact we're looking at the Earth. And that suggests a kind of duality of time and space, of matter, of the solidness of things, and the fact, or the fact that, or maybe not the fact that science suggests that everything, in a sense, came from stars, and in a sense, at one time, will return back to dust, return back to the material of space, just particles. It reminds me of that song by Joni Mitchell, the song Woodstock from the 1970s. I think it says, we are stardust, we are golden, we are 60 or billion-year-old carbon. And these maps are very much within that vein. Okay. Let me just go back a bit. So in fact, it's quite full of stars, really. The star map is just about finished now. The last thing I've got to do is just put little white dots on all of these areas here, where the stars go. This is where the latex used to be, and so now I'm just putting a little bit of white paint in all of these little spots. And where the latex was, there's less black paint, so it creates a kind of halo. I'm not sure if you're actually able to see that in the video. An important thing about, well, for me, an important thing with the star maps is that I don't make distinction between big mountains or small mountains, or just little hills, or even extremely small elevations. I treat them all as being the same. One of the reasons for that is that it's an awful lot more work to grade, the actual physical size of each star in relation to the altitude of the particular summit that is being depicted. I'll have to go back there because that's a little bit of latex that I've missed. I let that little bit of white paint dry and then pull off that latex. And see, there's another bit there. One of the things about getting old is that your eyes start to let you down. And you've got to look extremely closely to see where the the latex is, and have a good pair of glasses. Yes, getting back to the thing about the issue about the difference between the altitude or the size of a hill. The way I look at it is that all hills are relative to their surrounding. All elevations are relative to their surrounding. A mountain, for example, in a flat country, a very, very small mountain becomes extremely significant, and or even a small hill becomes very, very significant and takes on a kind of almost mythological sort of status, whereas that same hill surrounded by big mountains would have no particular status. It would would hardly be noticed. A small sort of almost an artificial sort of children's play hill in a park, a flat park, becomes extremely significant. And so from a sort of symbolic and metaphorical perspective, I treat them all as being important. Each one is a star. And of course, at this point, there becomes a kind of what, that expression, artistic license. Because at this point, I have a vague notion of what kind of size these mountains are. And sometimes the latex, got a cat climbing up here. It's a constant problem having cats around, because they're always climbing on the artwork. This cat's called Frida. Let's hold her up. Yeah, what do you think? Come on, down you go. Yeah, there's a sort of artistic license in the sense that at the end of the day, whilst it's a conceptual work and the cat's come back again, a conceptual work and attempts to look at something in a serious manner, it's also a painting. It's also aesthetic, and so quite a lot of effort goes. Hey, cat, get down. Quite a lot of effort goes into just ensuring that it kind of looks right. And that's things like how big the little white dots are, how black it is, how blue it is. Seen quite a few little spots up here that I've missed. You have to look very, very carefully because it's. A few days ago it was very, very sunny, and so the sun really illuminated all of the where the latex had been. But today it's quite overcast, quite dull, and so it's quite hard to see. It is in fact possible to see right through the black if the light is correct, and that's part of the work. To leave a trace of the original map underneath, so it can actually be seen if you look carefully. Now, once I've finished putting the white dots on the stars, that's effectively is the end of the process. The only thing that remains to be done is to pull off the scotch, which surrounds the edge of the map, and which hopefully has protected to a large degree the map, the areas of the map that I don't want to have paint on from getting any paint on it. Of course, that never quite happens. And also, when you take the scotch off, there's always the danger of pulling off some of the paper, you know, the map, the printed ink on the map, and that's that often happens. You have to take it off very slowly and carefully. But when I first did these maps, that was something that really used to bother me. You know, damaging the map or getting a little bit of sprayed black paint getting under the scotch. But nowadays that doesn't bother me at all, really. I just see it as part of the process, part of the nature of these things. It's, you know, it's a handmade object. It's not machine made. I mean, the map itself is machine made, but the painting that I'm doing on top of it is handmade, artisanal in a sense. It's painting, however you interpret that. And paintings are messy. They're not always clean. So I'm hoping that this will be clean, but there's every chance that there'll be blemishes and imperfections. For example, I don't know, you probably can't see it on the video, but there's several little circular marks here, and this is clearly occurred when I bought the map. Something had been sitting on top of it while it was being stored, and left an impression on the paper, on the folded paper, the folded map, which has gone through onto several of the different folds. You know, there's one here, one, well, there, and like I said, at one time that would have bothered me, but it doesn't bother me at all now. And pull it back, get the focus right. So it's just like that. It's very simple. There you go. Okay. See, you can probably just see here. Try and get in like there. So that's when the latex is taken off. You have all of these little marks. Now some are quite. You can almost see the map underneath there. That one there. You can see the map underneath it. This one too. And here as well. And here. And the idea is that when the white dot goes in there, it creates a kind of halo of some description. See, let's pull back a bit. Now in the video, the surface looks terrible because it's all got light reflecting on it, but in a sort of room context, a gallery context, a museum context, you don't have any of that problem at all, and everything's a uniform blackness. Once all the stars are done, the next stage is to very carefully, this is always quite a hard section, pull off the scotch. And as you can see, a residue of glue gets left on, but in general it's fairly clean. You have to do this very gently, otherwise it's possible to pull off the print or the surface of the map, which isn't good. It's been very hot this summer while I've been painting the map, and as I said before, I painted the map outside so as to prevent the studio getting full of fumes, because this paint just gets everywhere basically. So you get micro dust everywhere from black paint, and it doesn't smell good either. So you tend to have a lot of sun. Well, the painting's been subjected to quite a lot of sun, which is both good and bad. You maybe just see there's two little areas of where latex has come off, but I've missed them. I haven't put a star down, so I'll have to do that. Do that afterwards. Every time the light, the angle of the map is changed, the light falling on the map changes, and that reveals areas that you've missed, etc. Make sure I've got the camera pointing in the right direction. Off. So we should have, ideally the whole map should have this sort of clean edge, revealing the information about the landscape underneath on the edges. So now we can start to see the cover of the map being revealed. So it's a 1 to 25,000 scale map. I still don't know how to pronounce bitch. Bitch. So it's pays de bitch, or beach, or bitch. Okay. And it's a EGN map, and it's 3713 ET. I've left the scotch on the top there because I don't want the map to fall off. But basically, it's come out okay. Here we can see the line there is good. That's roughly where it is. That's the German frontier, which runs through here. This is upside down. I'll just turn it around. Get a better idea of roughly where this place is. So this map is just this here. I think there's some examples of. Here we've got a little example of some bleed. That kind of thing is almost inevitable. It's very hard to keep the scotch. Here we've got some glue that's from the scotch. Not quite sure. I have to be a little bit careful with that. There's a little bit of bleed up there. That often happens where you've got a crease in the map. Well, this is the finished star map. Pays de Beach, or Bitch. A very unfortunate name, that. Anyway, so the area that it covers, just on the frontier between France and Germany, it's this area here. Now, the reason I'm making, or have been asked to make this map, is that I made a similar map, but a digital form map that was printed commercially and produced commercially for an exhibition that took place just on the very edge of this map. And as often happens, the specific point of interest is often on the very edge of the map. And I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually down there. And it's a kind of museum, an art space that deals with, as far as I understand it, deals with crystal glass. And the Frac put on an exhibition there, and they asked me to produce a star map for that. So that's right on the edge. That's right on the very edge of this map. When I made my digital map, I utilized 3 maps, and then I constructed a new map of my own, which just dealt with that central area. This painted star map is this one here. It could have been this one, it could have been this one, but this was the best one to use. Okay, so as with all maps, it's folded like that, and we can open it out. Now, opening it out is always a fairly delicate process. I think you can just see, you can probably just see the stars there. And I'll just lay it out here on the table. Now, there's a little bit of scotch left, the residue of glue here, so that's a little bit problematic, but that will just dry itself out and sort itself out with time. And as I've said before, this is a hand painted work. It's not a machine produced piece, so there's going to be evidence of sort of like human frailty, and the scotch, the glue from the scotch at that point is it. So on the back you see it's just white like that, and that's what the map looks like. Just push it down a bit. And when it's exhibited, it will probably be exhibited like this, and also it probably will be stored in the archives like this as well. To keep folding it and unfolding it and folding it and unfolding it, eventually it will cause damage to the creases, to the folds, and the paint will start to, you know. But then that's what happens to maps anyway, so it's not such a big deal if that does occur. And when these are exhibited, they're usually exhibited either in a glass case or on a wall, and they're just connected with magnets to the wall, so there's no piercing of the skin. And that's it really. Let's have a look at the camera and see if we've got a... Yeah, that's okay. This is quite a large map. I remember I did a whole series of maps for the Frac Lorraine of Switzerland, and they were much smaller maps. There were probably about 4 maps would have fitted into this space. And that's it. The area that the exhibition took place is just down here, in fact. Just on the very edge of the map, just maybe 1 centimetre in, is the place where the museum is. This is the ville, the city of Bitch here, or Beach. Here we have a lot of stars because the land is very undulating. There's lots and lots of little summits here. Up here, there's not so many stars. This is more of a plateau. It's quite high, and so the summits are more dispersed. As I said before, the intensity of an individual star does not really relate to whether it's a big hill, a small hill, a high summit, a low summit. All summits are relative with respect to these maps. And I think when you look at this, maybe it's not so easy to see on the video, but basically we're looking at a map of terra, of land, something tangible. But when we look at this map, it's converted, it's translated into space, outer space, a star system, or just a vast universe of stars, or one section of a universe. It could be anywhere. And so I often like to think that these maps have a duality. You know, I've spoken about this before, sort of duality, in time and space. The fact that we are here on Earth, we're here in one particular place, but at the same time we're in space. We're in the vastness of the universe, and our little planet will one day, in a sense, I guess, just disappear. As it did, at one time it didn't exist, and in the future it won't exist. It'll just be gone, and this is what will be left, presumably. Okay, now one of the more subtle aspects of this work is about, I suppose, about the notion of the artwork itself. And in the fact that basically I just post it, and what I do is I fold it up just like this. Now I guess you should be wearing white gloves for this sort of thing, but I just don't have any white gloves, so everything's pretty clean. The map is taken, placed inside this Colissimo box. There's padding, and I'll be putting some material, this material, cut it into squares, and particularly where there's a little bit of glue still from the scotch, from the process of making it, I'll just put that down. And this fabric is the sort of fabric you use for plants, for keeping frost, the cold off vegetation, and that will protect the map. Goes in the Colissimo box and is sent to Metz, to the Frac Lorraine, and that's it.